The morning sun cast long shadows across the Sundarbans Wildlife Research Station as Dr. Sarah Chen checked her tablet for the third time. Today marked the beginning of something that had never happened before in galactic history. 12 alien students from 6 different worlds were coming to Earth to study what they called primitive predators. Sarah shook her head at that phrase. She had been working with Earth's most dangerous animals for 15 years, and she knew there was nothing primitive about them. But the aliens didn't know that yet. The transport ship landed with barely a whisper of sound. Sarah watched as the doors opened, and the strangest group of students she had ever seen stepped out onto the wooden platform. Leading the group was Crystalline Song of Wind, a being that looked like she was made of living crystal. Her body caught the sunlight and threw rainbows across the ground as she moved. Behind her came 2 creatures that looked like walking water, their forms shifting and flowing as they talked to each other without making any sound. 3 insect-like beings followed next. They moved in perfect sync, their 4 arms and large black eyes scanning everything around them. Sarah knew they were part of something called a hive mind, where many individuals shared one consciousness. The last group looked the most human, but their skin was deep purple, and they had 3 eyes instead of 2. "Welcome to Earth," Sarah said, stepping forward with a smile. "I'm Dr. Sarah Chen, and I'll be your guide for the next month." Crystalline Song of Wind moved closer, her crystal body making soft, chiming sounds. "We appreciate your hospitality, Dr. Chen, though I must say, we are quite curious about what Earth's ecosystem could possibly teach us. Our species have been traveling the stars for thousands of your years. We have studied predators across the galaxy." One of the water beings, who called herself Ripple Through Deep Waters, nodded her flowing head. "Our records show that Earth has only recently developed space travel. Your predators must be quite basic compared to what we have encountered." Sarah felt her jaw tighten slightly, but she kept smiling. "Well, I think you might be surprised. Earth has some very interesting hunters. But first, let me show you to your quarters, and then we can start with your presentations." The research station was built on stilts above the water, connected by walkways that stretched between the buildings. Sarah led the group to the main laboratory, where screens and equipment lined the walls. The aliens looked around with what seemed like polite interest, but Sarah could tell they were not impressed. "Your technology is adequate," said one of the insect beings in a clicking voice. "We brought our own recording equipment, of course. Our devices can capture data that your instruments cannot detect." "Of course," Sarah replied. She had dealt with arrogant scientists before, but never ones from outer space. "Why don't we start with your presentations? I'd love to learn about the predators from your worlds." Crystalline Song of Wind stepped forward, her body glowing brighter. "We would be honored to share our knowledge. But first, we must warn you about something. There is a creature that exists across many worlds in our galaxy. We call it the Nixthara. It is the most dangerous predator we have ever encountered." The crystal being gestured, and a hologram appeared in the air above her hand. Sarah's eyes widened as she saw the creature. It was massive, standing at least 12 feet tall on 4 powerful legs. Its body was covered in what looked like living shadow, constantly shifting and changing. Red eyes glowed from a head that seemed to be made of pure nightmare. "The Nixthara," continued Crystalline Song of Wind, "is completely unkillable by normal means. It can regrow any part of its body within hours. It can become invisible to most sensors. It hunts in packs using telepathic communication. And worst of all, it can project pure fear directly into the minds of its prey." Ripple Through Deep Waters flowed forward. "These creatures have destroyed entire ecosystems on 17 different worlds. They hunt everything until nothing is left. My people lost 3 colony worlds to them before we learned to simply abandon any planet where they appeared." One of the purple-skinned aliens, who had introduced himself as High Thought Seeker, nodded gravely. "The only way to deal with Nixthara is orbital bombardment from space. Even then, some always survive. They are the reason why most space-traveling species stick to heavily defended worlds." The insect beings clicked in unison. "We have calculated that any planet-bound species would be helpless against them. The fear projection alone would paralyze Any carbon-based life form. Your species would simply die of terror before the creatures even attacked. Sarah listened to all of this with growing interest, but also with something the aliens might not have expected. Familiarity. She had read classified reports about these exact creatures just last week. 3 Nixthera had somehow ended up on Earth through an illegal smuggling operation, and they had been causing problems in the deeper parts of the Sundarbans for almost a month. That's very interesting, Sarah said carefully. Tell me, have you ever encountered any planet-bound predators that could challenge these Nixthera? All 12 aliens made various sounds of amusement. Crystalline's song of winds chiming became almost musical. Dr. Chen, with respect, that is impossible. No creature that has not developed space travel could possibly threaten a Nixthera. The gap in capability is simply too great. Your Earth predators, said High Thought Seeker, may seem dangerous to you because you have not seen true galactic-level threats, but compared to what exists out there in the stars, they are like small insects. Ripple through deep waters flowed closer to the window that looked out over the mangrove swamps. We understand that your tigers and other hunters may seem impressive on Earth, but they are adapted for a world without real challenges. The Nixthara would eliminate every predator on your planet within days. Sarah nodded slowly. But inside, she was thinking about something else entirely. The emergency alert system in the research station had been tracking movement patterns in the deep swamps for weeks. The 3 escaped Nixthera were out there right now, somewhere in the maze of waterways and jungle. But so was something else. The largest Bengal tiger on record, a massive male called Rajesh, had been moving through the same areas where the Nixthara had been spotted. The tracking data showed that instead of avoiding the alien creatures, Rajesh seemed to be following them. Well, Sarah said, checking her tablet as another data packet came in from the field sensors. I think tomorrow we'll take you out into the field. You can see some of our local predators in action. We look forward to it, said Crystalline's Song of Wind. Though I hope you will not be disappointed when you see how basic they appear compared to true galactic apex predators. Sarah smiled. But this time it was a different kind of smile. I don't think disappointment will be a problem. In fact, I think you're going to learn something very important about Earth. As the aliens settled into their quarters for the night, Sarah remained in the laboratory, watching the sensor data stream across her screens. The Nixthera were moving again, and 3 different tigers were converging on their position. Tomorrow was going to be very educational for everyone. The next morning brought thick fog rolling off the water, making the research station feel like it was floating in a cloud. Sarah found the alien students already gathered in the main laboratory, their various forms of communication filling the room with chimes, clicks, and the sound of flowing water. Dr. Chen, called Crystalline's Song of Wind as Sarah entered, we have prepared a more detailed presentation about the Nixthera. We believe it will help you understand why no planetary predator could ever match them. Sarah poured herself coffee and settled into a chair. I'm all ears. Please, go ahead. The crystal being gestured again, and the hologram from yesterday reappeared. But this time it moved. The shadow creature in the display prowled through what looked like a forest, its form shifting constantly. Every few seconds, it would completely disappear, only to reappear somewhere else entirely. Observe the adaptive camouflage, said High Thought Seeker, his 3 eyes focused intently on the display. The Nixthara can bend light around its body, making it invisible to almost any form of detection. Heat sensors, motion detectors, even psychic scanning, none of it works. Ripple through deep waters flowed closer to the hologram. But that is only the beginning. Watch this recording from the Kethmori colony world of deep singing tides. The image changed to show what looked like a battlefield. Several Nixthera were fighting against creatures that resembled giant crabs with energy weapons mounted on their backs. Sarah watched as one of the shadow beasts took a direct hit from what was clearly some kind of plasma cannon. The blast tore completely through the creature's chest, leaving a smoking hole. This should have killed it instantly, said one of the insect beings in its clicking voice. But observe what happens next. The wounded Nixthara stumbled for perhaps 3 seconds. Then the hole in its chest began to close. Dark tendrils of shadow reached across the wound, pulling it together. Within minutes, the creature was completely healed, and back in the fight. The regeneration is unlike anything we have seen elsewhere, continued Crystalline Song of Wind. They can regrow entire limbs in less than an hour. We have seen them survive having their heads completely destroyed, only to grow new ones. Some scientists believe they exist partially outside our normal dimension, which is why they are so hard to kill. Sarah leaned forward, studying the display more carefully. How fast can they move? Faster than your eyes could follow, said High Thought Seeker. But speed is not their greatest weapon. Show her the fear projection, please. The hologram shifted again. This time it showed a group of soldiers. Sarah couldn't tell what species they were, but they looked tough and well-armed. They were advancing through a jungle when suddenly they all stopped. One by one, they began to scream. Their weapons fell from their hands as they collapsed to the ground, their bodies shaking violently. The Nixthera can project pure terror directly into the brain of any living creature, explained Ripple through deep waters. It is not just fear. It is complete paralysis of the survival instinct. The prey becomes unable to fight, unable to run, unable to think of anything except death. One of the insect beings clicked rapidly. Our hive mind gives us some protection because we share consciousness across many bodies. But even we can be affected if exposed to the projection for too long. Individual creatures with single minds have no defense at all. What about pack hunters? Sarah asked. Do they hunt in groups? Crystalline Song of Wind chimed softly. That is perhaps the most terrifying aspect. Yes, they hunt in packs of 3 to 5 individuals, but they communicate telepathically, with perfect coordination. They can surround prey from multiple directions, project fear from different angles, and attack with timing that no normal pack could achieve. The hologram now showed exactly that 3 Nixthera, moving through a city, their movements perfectly synchronized even though they were separated by several blocks. They closed in on their target from different directions. And when they attacked, it was like watching a single creature with multiple bodies. The telepathic link also means they share knowledge instantly, added High Thought Seeker. If one learns something about the prey, all of them know it immediately. They adapt their hunting strategy in real time, faster than any opponent can adjust. Sarah was quiet for several minutes, absorbing all of this information. Finally, she asked, how many worlds have they reached? 37 confirmed, said Ripple through deep waters sadly. 17 completely destroyed. 20 abandoned before total ecosystem collapse. The pattern is always the same. They arrive, we still don't know how they spread between star systems, and they begin hunting everything. They don't stop until every living thing larger than an insect is dead. And there's no way to fight them? Sarah pressed. All 12 aliens made various negative sounds. Only orbital bombardment has ever been successful, said Crystalline Song of Wind. Complete destruction of the surface from space. Even then, we usually have to burn the entire continent to be sure we got them all. Your species, said High Thought Seeker, would not even have that option. You have no orbital weapons platforms, no way to evacuate entire planets. If Nixthera ever reached Earth, your people would simply die. The insect beings clicked in unison again. This is why we must share this knowledge with you. When Earth joins the galactic community, you must know about this threat. You must be prepared to abandon any world where they appear. Sarah felt her tablet buzz with an incoming message. She glanced at it quickly, then looked back at the aliens. That's very thorough information. Thank you for sharing it. But I have a question. What if I told you that these creatures were already on Earth? The room went completely silent. Even the background humming of the station's equipment seemed to stop. That would be impossible, whispered Crystalline Song of Wind, her crystal body dim with shock. We would have detected the signs, said Ripple through deep waters, her flowing form becoming agitated. The ecosystem disruption. The disappearance of wildlife. The abandoned human settlements. Sarah pulled up a file on her tablet and projected it onto the lab's main screen. 3 Nixthera were smuggled to Earth 4 weeks ago, as part of an illegal exotic animal trafficking operation. The smugglers didn't know what they were carrying, obviously. The creatures escaped during transport and are currently somewhere in the Sundarban's mangrove system. High Thought Seeker's three eyes went wide. You must evacuate immediately. Contact your space agencies. You need orbital bombardment within hours, or— Wait, Sarah interrupted. Look at this data. The screen showed a map of the Sundarbans, with tracking information overlaid. 3 red dots showed the approximate positions of the Nixthera over the past month. But there were also blue dots, lots of them showing the positions of local wildlife. The ecosystem is still intact, Sarah said calmly. Wildlife populations are normal. No mass disappearances. No evidence of the hunting behavior you described. Impossible, clicked the insect beings. The Nixthera cannot stop hunting. It is their nature. Look closer, Sarah said, zooming in on one section of the map. Here's something interesting. If you did FARD, end quote. The display now showed movement patterns over the past week. The red dots, representing the Nixthera, were moving in what looked like evasive patterns, changing direction frequently, never staying in one area for long. They're not hunting, Ripple through deep waters observed in amazement. They appear to be? Running? From what? Demanded Crystalline Song of Wind. Sarah smiled and added another layer to the map. Orange dots appeared, tracking the movement of 3 Bengal tigers through the same area. The patterns were clear. The tigers were following the Nixthera, and the alien creatures were trying to avoid them. Meet Rajesh, Priya, and Bahadur, Sarah said. Our local tigers. They've been tracking your unkillable predators for almost a month now. The silence in the room was deafening. Finally, High Thought Seeker spoke in a shaky voice. Your primitive hunters are stalking Nixthera? And the Nixthera are fleeing? That's what the data shows, Sarah confirmed. And based on the tracking patterns from this morning, I think the chase is almost over. Would you like to come observe what happens when Earth's apex predators meet your galactic nightmare? The 12 aliens looked at each other in complete bewilderment. Everything they thought they knew about predators, about Earth, about the hierarchy of dangerous creatures in the universe, had just been turned upside down. This is impossible, whispered Crystalline Song of Wind. Well, Sarah said, checking her tablet again. We'll find out for sure very soon. The tigers are closing in. An hour later, Sarah led the group of stunned aliens down to the dock where several research boats waited in the murky water. The fog was beginning to lift, revealing the endless maze of waterways and mangrove trees that made up the Sundarbans. Somewhere in that green wilderness, the most feared predators in the galaxy were being hunted by Earth's tigers. Dr. Chen, said Crystalline Song of Wind, her crystal body still dim with shock. Surely you understand the danger. We should be evacuating, not moving closer to the Nixthera. I appreciate your concern, Sarah replied, helping the aliens into the boats. But we have protocols for dangerous situations. Plus, I think you're going to want to see this. The water beings, Ripple through deep waters and her companion Flow like rivers, seemed more comfortable once they were near the water. But their forms were still agitated. Dr. Chen, you don't understand. The fear projection alone will incapacitate everyone in a 50-meter radius. Your boats should not go anywhere near them. Send. We'll keep our distance, Sarah assured them. Though privately she knew they might get much closer than the aliens expected. We have drones that can record from a safe range. High Thought Seeker climbed carefully into the lead boat, his 3 eyes scanning the water nervously. In all our records, no planet-bound creature has ever successfully stalked a Nixthera. They are too well adapted, too dangerous. What you think you observed in your data must be a mistake. The insect beings clicked rapidly among themselves before their spokesperson turned to Sarah. We calculate a 98% probability that your tigers are dead already. The Nixthera were likely feeding when your sensors last detected movement. Sarah started the boat's quiet electric motor and began navigating through the narrow channels between the mangrove roots. Well, let's go find out. As they moved deeper into the swamp, Sarah's radio crackled with reports from her field team. Doctor. Patel's voice came through clearly. Sarah, we've got eyes on Rajesh. He's about 2 kilometers from the last known Nixthera position and moving fast. His behavior is, well, It's not what we expected. What do you mean? Sarah asked, while the aliens leaned in to listen. He's hunting, but not like we've ever seen him hunt before. Usually, tigers stalk slowly, carefully. Rajesh is moving with purpose, like he knows exactly where he's going. And Sarah, he doesn't look afraid, at all. Crystalline Song of Wind chimed urgently. Impossible. The fear projection affects all carbon-based life. Your tiger should be paralyzed with terror by now. Sarah guided the boat around a bend in the channel, following the GPS coordinates her team had sent. Dr. Patel, deploy the drones. Let's get some visual confirmation. Already airborne, came the reply. Patching the feed through to your tablets now. Sarah's tablet screen flickered to life, showing an aerial view of dense jungle canopy. For a moment, there was nothing but green leaves and shadows. Then the drone's camera focused on a movement below. It was Rajesh, and he was magnificent. The massive Bengal tiger moved through the undergrowth with fluid grace, his orange and black stripes blending perfectly with the dappled sunlight. But there was something different about his movement. Something that made even Sarah catch her breath. He's tracking, she whispered. Tracking what? Demanded High Thought Seeker. The answer came a moment later as the drone camera panned left. There, barely visible even to the high-resolution sensors, was a patch of moving shadow. It was trying to use the Nyxthera's adaptive camouflage, but something was wrong. Instead of being completely invisible, it flickered in and out of sight, as if its cloaking was failing. That's impossible, said Flow like rivers, her watery form pressing against the tablet screen. Nyxthara camouflage has never been detected by planetary life forms. Rajesh isn't detecting it with his eyes, Sarah realized, watching the tiger's behavior. He's following the scent trail. The alien students watched in growing amazement as the tiger's massive head swung back and forth, clearly following something they couldn't see or smell. His ears twitched constantly, rotating to catch sounds that the drone's microphones couldn't pick up. The camouflage is visual, said one of the insect beings, clicking in excitement. But it doesn't hide scent or sound. Your predator is using senses that the Nyxthera evolved to counter in spacefaring species. Most civilized species rely heavily on electronic sensors, added Crystalline Song of Wind, her brightness returning as she began to understand. We've lost the ability to track by primitive methods. On the screen, Rajesh suddenly stopped. His massive body went completely still, only his tail twitching slightly. The aliens held their breath, waiting to see what would happen when the fear projection hit him. The Nyxthera's outline became clearer as it prepared to attack. The shadow creature was enormous, just as the aliens had described. But there was something different about its posture. Instead of the confident stalking gait they had shown in their videos, this one looked cautious. Why isn't your tiger paralyzed? Whispered Ripple through deep waters. The answer came when Rajesh moved. Instead of freezing in terror or fleeing, the tiger dropped into a perfect hunting crouch. His muscles bunched, his eyes locked onto the shifting shadow, and a low growl rumbled from his throat that the drone's microphones barely caught. The fear projection isn't working, Sarah said in amazement. Look at his behavior. He's not afraid at all. But that's impossible, cried High Thought Seeker. No creature can resist the neural disruption. Sarah watched as Rajesh began to circle the Nyxthera, moving with the patient, deadly grace that had made tigers one of Earth's most feared predators for millions of years. Maybe that's the problem. You said the fear projection works on civilized species, on creatures with advanced brains. But tigers are pure predator. Their brains are built for hunting, not for complex thought. You're saying the Nyxthera fear attack doesn't work because the tiger's mind is too simple? Asked Crystalline Song of Wind. Not simple, Sarah corrected, focused. A tiger doesn't think about being afraid. It just thinks about killing. On the screen, the standoff continued. The Nyxthera was trying to use its camouflage to disappear. But Rajesh never lost track of it. Every time the creature tried to move to a better position, the tiger was already turning to face it. Where are the others? Asked Flow like rivers suddenly. Nyxthera always hunt in packs. Sarah checked another screen, showing the broader area. Priya is about half a kilometer to the east, and Bahadur is to the south. If I didn't know better, I'd say they've surrounded the pack. 3 tigers against 3 Nixthera, mused one of the insect beings. The numbers are even. But surely the alien creatures have the advantage in coordination, and the creature stopped talking as something new appeared on the drone feed. A second shadow was moving through the trees behind Rajesh, clearly trying to flank the tiger. The Nixthara pack was attempting their classic surround and attack maneuver. "Your tiger is about to be ambushed," said High Thought Seeker urgently. Even if he can resist the fear projection, he cannot fight 2 at once. But as they watched, Rajesh's ears suddenly swiveled backward. Without taking his eyes off the first Nixthera, he let out a coughing roar that echoed across the swamp. Immediately, 2 answering roars came from different directions. "He just called for backup," Sarah breathed. "Tigers don't hunt in packs," protested Crystalline Song of Wind. "These ones do," Sarah replied, watching the screen intently. "These 3 have been hunting together for weeks. They've learned." The second Nixthera, the one trying to flank Rajesh, suddenly stopped its advance. For the first time since the aliens had been studying these creatures, a Nixthera looked uncertain. "Dr. Chen," came Dr. Patel's voice over the radio, tight with excitement. "You need to see this. Priya and Bahadur are moving in fast, and their approach angles are perfect. It's like they've done this before." Sarah looked at the alien students, who were staring at the screens in complete disbelief. Everything they knew about predator behavior, about the dominance of Nixthara in the galactic ecosystem, about Earth's supposedly primitive hunters, was being turned upside down. "The pack coordination," whispered Ripple through deep waters. "They're outmaneuvering the Nixthera." "Impossible," said High Thought Seeker, but his voice lacked conviction. On the screen, Rajesh took a single step forward. The movement was perfectly calculated, close enough to maintain pressure on his target, but not so close as to trigger a desperate attack. Behind him, the sounds of 2 more tigers approaching grew louder. For the first time in galactic history, Nixthera were being hunted, and they knew it. The attack came without warning. The first Nixthara, the one Rajesh had been watching, suddenly lunged forward with impossible speed. Its claws, each longer than a human hand, slashed through the air where the tiger had been standing just a moment before. But Rajesh was no longer there. The massive Bengal tiger had moved the instant before the attack, flowing to the side with liquid grace. As the shadow creature's momentum carried it forward, Rajesh struck. His claws raked across the Nixthera's flank, leaving deep wounds that immediately began bleeding dark fluid. "First blood to the tiger," whispered Dr. Patel over the radio. The alien students watching the drone feed sat in shocked silence. On their screens, they could see the wounds on the Nixthara beginning to close already, dark tendrils reaching across the cuts to heal them. But before the regeneration could complete, Rajesh attacked again. "He's not giving it time to heal," Sarah realized, watching the tiger's strategy unfold. "Every time the wounds start closing, he opens new ones." Crystalline Song of Wind's crystal body vibrated with confusion. "But that's impossible. No single creature can maintain that level of sustained attack against a Nixthera. They're too fast, too strong." On the screen, the shadow creature tried to use its camouflage to disappear, but Rajesh never lost track of it. The tiger's nose twitched constantly, following the scent trail that the alien's technology couldn't hide. When the Nixthera tried to circle around for a better attack angle, the tiger was already moving to intercept. "Your predator is matching its speed," observed High Thought Seeker, his 3 eyes wide with disbelief. "How is that possible?" "Tigers can run 40 miles per hour in short bursts," Sarah explained. "But that's not their real advantage. Watch how he moves." Instead of trying to overpower the Nixthera with brute force, Rajesh was fighting like what he was, a perfect hunting machine, refined by millions of years of evolution. Every movement was efficient, every attack calculated. He wasn't fighting to win quickly, he was fighting to win inevitably. The second Nixthara, the one that had been trying to flank Rajesh, suddenly realized it was being flanked itself. Priya emerged from the jungle like a nightmare made of orange and black stripes. The female tiger was smaller than Rajesh, but no less deadly. and she hit the second shadow creature like a furry missile. Two separate battles now, observed flow like rivers, her watery form rippling with anxiety. But even as she spoke, it became clear that these weren't separate battles at all. Rajesh and Priya were fighting as a coordinated unit, each always aware of where the other was, each supporting the other's attacks. When Rajesh's opponent tried to use its telepathic link to coordinate with its packmate, the tigers were already adjusting their strategy. "They're reading the battle faster than the Nyxthera can communicate," said one of the insect beings in amazement. "How is that possible without telepathic links?" "They don't need telepathy," Sarah replied, watching the beautiful dance of death playing out on her screen. "They've been hunting together for weeks. They know each other's movements, each other's strategies. It's pure instinct." The first Nyxthera, wounded and frustrated, tried a different tactic. It reared up on its hind legs and let out a sound that made the boat's hull vibrate. The alien students recognized it immediately. "Fear projection at maximum intensity," whispered Ripple through deep waters. "That should paralyze everything within 100 meters. But Rajesh didn't even slow down. If anything, the roar seemed to make him more focused. His next attack was faster, more vicious, leaving wounds across the creature's chest that went deep enough to see bone. "The neural disruption isn't working at all," said Crystalline's Song of Wind in a voice filled with wonder and terror. "It's like the tiger's mind is immune." "Not immune," Sarah corrected. "Just different. A tiger's brain isn't built like yours or mine. When they're hunting, they enter what we call a flow state. They're not thinking about fear, or pain, or death. They're just thinking about the next move, the next attack. There's nothing for the fear projection to disrupt." The third Nyxthera appeared suddenly, bursting from the jungle canopy above to land directly between the two battles. This was clearly the pack leader, larger and more aggressive than the others. Its telepathic coordination immediately began reorganizing the other two creatures' tactics. For a moment, it looked like the tide might turn. The three shadow creatures moved with perfect synchronization, each one supporting the others, their regeneration allowing them to take risks that would destroy any normal predator. Then Bahadur arrived. The third tiger came from an angle nobody expected, not even the Nyxthera with their telepathic awareness. He had been moving underwater through the flooded channels, approaching beneath the surface where scent and sound couldn't give him away. When he burst from the water directly beneath the pack leader, his attack was completely unexpected. The largest Nyxthera went down under 400 pounds of furious tiger. And suddenly the perfect coordination of the alien pack was broken. Bahadur's claws found the creature's throat. And instead of the quick killing bite that tigers usually used, he held on and kept tearing. "He's preventing speech," realized High Thought Seeker. Without vocal communication, the telepathic link is disrupted. "Ivration. The pack coordination is breaking down," added one of the insect beings. "Each creature is now fighting individually." Render on. That was the beginning of the end. With their telepathic coordination disrupted, the Nyxthera were just three individual predators, fighting three tigers that had been training for this exact moment for weeks. And tigers, as Earth had learned over millions of years, were very good at killing things that needed killing. Priya was the first to make the killing strike. Her opponent, distracted by trying to help its pack leader, didn't see her final attack coming. Her jaws locked around the creature's neck with a bite force that could crack bones, and she began what tigers called the death roll. The Nyxthera's regeneration meant nothing if its head was completely separated from its body. "Regeneration requires intact neural pathways," observed Crystalline's Song of Wind in a stunned whisper. "Massive trauma to the central nervous system disrupts the process." Rajesh finished his opponent next, using a combination of sustained damage and strategic targeting that prevented any effective healing. The shadow creature had spent so much energy trying to regenerate from previous wounds that when the final attack came, it simply didn't have the resources left to recover. The pack leader, the largest and strongest of the three, lasted the longest. But Bahadur had learned from watching his companion's techniques. Instead of trying to kill the creature quickly, he kept it pinned and called for help. When Rajesh and Priya arrived, The three tigers attacked in perfect coordination. The alien students watched in complete silence as the most feared predators in the galaxy died within minutes of each other, killed by Earth's supposedly primitive hunters. "It's over," said Dr. Patel's voice over the radio, filled with awe. "All three Nixthara are dead. The tigers. They did it. They actually did it." On the drone feed, the three tigers stood among their fallen enemies, breathing heavily but victorious. They had cuts and scratches from the battle, but nothing serious. The Nixthara regeneration had never had a chance to turn the tide, because the tigers had never given them time to recover. "How?" whispered High Thought Seeker. "How is this possible?" Sarah looked at the 12 alien students, seeing their entire understanding of the universe written across their faces. "Because you've been thinking about this wrong. You've been thinking about space travel and energy weapons and telepathic communication as advantages. But sometimes, the best weapon is teeth and claws, and the will to never stop fighting." Crystalline Song of Wind's body was so dim now that she was almost transparent. "Your predators defeated ours through persistence? Through being what they are," Sarah replied. "Tigers don't give up. They don't retreat. They don't negotiate or think about consequences. When they decide something needs to die, they keep attacking until it does. The Nixthara's advantages only work against creatures that think like you do logically, tactically, with self-preservation as a priority. But tigers don't think like that," added Flow Like Rivers, understanding beginning to dawn in her watery features. "No," Sarah confirmed. "Tigers think like death itself. Patient, inevitable, and absolutely unstoppable." The drone cameras showed the three tigers moving away from their kills, disappearing back into the jungle as quietly as they had come. In a few hours, the only evidence of the battle would be three dead creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. The alien students sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Everything they thought they knew about predators, about survival, about the hierarchy of dangerous creatures in the universe, had just been completely overturned by Earth's tigers. In less than an hour, the sun was setting over the Sundarbans as Sarah's boats returned to the research station. The alien students had been quiet for the entire journey back, each lost in their own thoughts about what they had witnessed. The gentle sound of water lapping against the hull was the only noise as they processed the complete destruction of everything they thought they knew about predators. Back in the laboratory, Sarah pulled up the final reports from her field team. All three Nixthara were confirmed dead. The tigers had vanished back into the jungle, their territory secured, their hunt complete. It was as if the most feared creatures in the galaxy had never existed at all. "Dr. Chen," said Crystalline Song of Wind finally, her crystal body slowly regaining some of its brightness. "We need to understand. How is it possible that your tigers succeeded where entire spacefaring civilizations have failed?" Sarah settled into her chair and looked at the 12 aliens gathered around her. They were no longer the confident, condescending students who had arrived yesterday. They were scientists who had just seen their fundamental understanding of the universe challenged and defeated. "I think," Sarah said carefully, "the problem is that you've all been thinking about evolution and survival from the perspective of civilized species. You've had technology for so long that you've forgotten what life was like before it." High Thought Seeker leaned forward, his three eyes focused intently. "Please explain." "Earth is what you might call a death world," Sarah continued. "Not because it's unusually harsh, but because survival here has always required absolute commitment. Every creature that exists on our planet is descended from millions of years of survivors who faced extinction-level challenges and refused to die." She gestured to the window, where the last light was fading over the endless green maze of the mangroves. "Tigers didn't evolve to hunt deer and wild boar. They evolved to hunt everything: ice ages, volcanic eruptions, climate change, asteroid impacts, disease, famine. Earth has thrown every possible disaster at life, and the creatures that survived did so by becoming perfect killing machines." Ripple through deep waters flowed closer, her form more stable now. "But the Nixthara evolved on harsh worlds too. Many species have faced difficult environments." "Did they?" Sarah asked. Or did they evolve to dominate environments that were already safe? Your descriptions of the Nyxthera suggest creatures that became apex predators and then stopped evolving. They relied on their advantages: camouflage, regeneration, fear projection, telepathy, because those advantages always worked. One of the insect beings clicked thoughtfully. You're suggesting that our predators became comfortable? Exactly. But tigers can't become comfortable, because Earth never lets them. Every generation faces new challenges, new threats, new reasons to become deadlier. A tiger that stops evolving, stops improving, dies. A tiger that can't adapt to hunt new prey starves. A tiger that gives up when injured doesn't pass on its genes. Sarah pulled up a video on her tablet, showing tigers hunting various prey over different seasons. Watch how they adapt. This is Rajesh, hunting wild boar in the dry season. Different tactics, different approach, different strategy than what he used against the Nyxthera. Tigers don't just have one way of killing, they have hundreds. The Nyxthera's advantages, said Crystalline Song of Wind slowly, only work against creatures that think like us. Right. Camouflage works against species that rely on technology and energy sensors, but not against creatures that hunt by scent and sound. Fear projection works against complex minds that can imagine their own death, but not against predators that think only about killing. Regeneration works against opponents that fight in bursts, but not against hunters that never stop attacking. Flow like rivers rippled thoughtfully. And the pack coordination? Tigers normally hunt alone, Sarah explained. But these three learned to hunt together because they needed to. They adapted. That's what Earth's predators do. They adapt faster than their environment can kill them. The Nyxthera couldn't adapt because they'd never had to. High Thought Seeker was quiet for a long moment. Dr. Chen, are you saying that Earth's predators are superior because they've faced more challenges? I'm saying they're superior because they've never stopped facing challenges. Most civilized species reach a point where technology protects them from natural selection. You use orbital bombardment against threats instead of fighting them directly. You evacuate planets instead of defending them. You've optimized for survival, which is smart. But tigers have optimized for victory. The insect beings clicked in unison. The psychological difference between surviving and winning. Exactly. When a tiger faces a threat, it doesn't think about escape or calling for help or using tools. It thinks about killing the threat. That single-minded focus, repeated across millions of years and billions of generations, creates something that your civilizations haven't seen in a very long time. What? Asked Ripple through deep waters. A creature that absolutely refuses to lose. Sarah pulled up one final video, showing Rajesh's tracking behavior from earlier in the day. Look at this footage. The Nyxthera had every advantage. Camouflage, regeneration, fear, projection, size, strength. But watch Rajesh's body language. At no point does he show any hesitation, any doubt, any consideration that he might not win. He's not brave. Bravery implies overcoming fear. He's simply incapable of conceiving defeat. Crystalline Song of Wind's chiming became softer, almost musical. And this mindset exists in all of Earth's predators? All successful ones, yes. The ones that couldn't develop it went extinct. What you're seeing in our tigers is the end result of the most ruthless evolutionary pressure in the known galaxy. A planet that kills everything that isn't perfect. Even your human species? Asked High Thought Seeker. Sarah smiled. We're the only species on Earth that hunted mammoths with pointed sticks and somehow won. We're the only creatures that looked at the ocean and said, I think I'll cross that. We're the ones who saw fire and decided to control it, who saw the sky and decided to fly through it, who saw space and decided to live there. Tigers kill with claws and teeth. Humans kill with determination and stubbornness. The alien students were quiet again. But this time it was the silence of understanding rather than shock. Finally, Crystalline Song of Wind spoke. Dr. Chen, we came here to study primitive predators and teach you about galactic threats. Instead, we've learned that Earth represents something we'd never encountered before. What's that? A planet that creates predators capable of hunting anything in the galaxy. Sarah nodded. And now you understand why we don't evacuate when faced with impossible odds. It's not because we're too primitive to know better. It's because we're too evolved to know when to quit. One of the insect beings activated its communication device. We must contact the Galactic Academy immediately. The threat assessment for Earth requires complete revision. What kind of revision? Sarah asked. High Thought Seeker's three eyes met hers directly. From primitive world requiring protection to apex predator civilization requiring diplomatic respect. No species in galactic history has demonstrated the ability to hunt Nyxthera successfully. Earth's predators didn't just survive the encounter, they dominated it. Flow like rivers added. Our reports will recommend immediate establishment of formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Not as a junior member requiring guidance, but as a senior member whose hunters can solve problems that our advanced civilizations cannot. There will also, said Crystalline Song of Wind, be recommendations that no galactic species should ever, under any circumstances, consider Earth or its inhabitants as prey. Sarah laughed. That seems wise. As the alien students began preparing their reports, Sarah stepped out onto the station's observation deck. The stars were coming out overhead, and somewhere among them were civilizations that were about to learn something new about the small blue planet in an unremarkable star system. They were about to learn that evolution didn't stop when intelligence began. They were about to learn that sometimes the most advanced predators were the ones that never needed to become advanced at all. And they were about to learn that when the galaxy had nightmares, Earth's tigers hunted them down and killed them. Dr. Patel joined her on the deck, looking out over the dark water where three of the galaxy's most feared predators had died that afternoon. So, how do you think this will change Earth's standing in galactic civilization? Sarah smiled, watching the lights of the tiger's territory in the distance. I think we're about to become very popular with anyone who has a predator problem, and very unpopular with anything that thinks humans or our planet look like easy prey. Good, said Dr. Patel. It's about time the galaxy learned what we've always known. What's that? That Earth doesn't raise victims. It raises survivors. And when you threaten survivors, you get hunters. In the distance, a tiger's roar echoed across the water, not a call of distress or fear, but a simple statement of fact. This was their territory. This was their home. And they had just proven that nothing in the galaxy could take it from them.